In the age of early access games, there can only be one king that reigns supreme. And that's baseless conjecture, baby! With Darkest Dungeon 2's relatively recent dip into early access, there's plenty of said conjecture to go around. From what the leper's favourite colour is, it's teal by the way, and to some really ridiculous things like which characters from the original are coming back. But amidst these theories, there are some that manage to stand out thanks to the various nuggets of truth that Red Hook has scattered throughout the game. I have compiled 8 such theories I've managed to put together based on flavortext, barks, and other sources of these truth nuggets within the game. How valid these theories are is up to you, but at the very least I hope you have fun. But right before we begin, a brief word.
Remind yourself to subscribe, share, and follow on Twitch for more ghoulish horrors.
And with that, we're off! The Leper looking for a cure. From Darkest Dungeon 2's Hero Shrine system, we now have a general understanding of the leper's history and how he came to this place. In the second chapter of his story, he orders physicians to come in from across the land to try and treat him after contracting leprosy from hugging people. This, by the way, is a very good reason not to hug people in real life as well. However, physicians and medical professionals were not what he turned to first. That honour goes to trying to use religion to cure his disease. When using the Holy Beads In item on the leper, he says that my first fruitless hopes were seeded with these beads, suggesting a certain disillusionment with the Holy Flame after it failed to cure him. On its own, this doesn't place the leper's brief stint with the light after he got leprosy, but having him use the occult idol has him talk about how he tried praying to all sorts of things when he was trying not to die, which implies that his desperate attempts to keep himself alive started with religion before progressing into medicine and then an acceptance of his fate. Realizing the futility of this attempt is what led to him becoming the wandering swordsman that we all know today. The current power of the light. Back in the time of the first Darkest Dungeon, the light was a powerful force which, unlike most of the cosmic horrors in this setting, was a force for good generated by collective human faith. At its peak, it had the incredible power of burning those unholy wretches who were unfortunate enough to get in your way. However, now its power is more in line with one of those wind-up torches your relatives give you for your birthday if they couldn't think of anything else and also hate you. Even in its diminished state, it still serves as the final bulwark between complete global chaos and semi-complete global chaos. In fact, thanks to lines in the game, we can determine exactly how powerful it is right now and show how it's similar to existing cosmic powers, including the way it can be harnessed. Using the Holy Beads In item on the occultist has him say a small cantrip to extract the power. Now, while all characters can obviously use the item, the method as to how they gain its boon is left ambiguous across each of them. All of them except the occultist, who knows and tells us exactly how he uses it. This suggests that, despite being formed from mankind's belief, the light functions under the same rules as other cosmic forces, and, in its original form before the spreading stain, could have even been considered the rival to the Heart of Darkness in terms of influence on the world. A bonus fact about the light's current power can be seen when you have the occultists use the occult idol, where he says, "I will try to extract favours from this imp," implying that the particular idol is not a major cosmic power, but a far less influential one. As both the Holy Beads and the idol give the exact same effect, we can safely say that the Holy Flame in its current state has power equal to one imp. What happened in the Tangle? While the photo and sprawl will show the story of how the spreading stain corrupted normal people, the Tangle tells us a story of how an army raised to combat this force fell into ruin, and eventually turned against the very world it was built to protect. Based on the academic's dialogue, there are certain aspects of this region that we know already. An army was raised in service of the Holy Flame in order to fight against the horrors that sprung forth from the mountain. When they saw what they were up against, they fell into despair, having never even raised a sword to fight. The useless, doomed fuckers. However, none of this suggests that the cult itself had anything to do with their resurrection. A clue about how that occurred can be gleaned from the Dreaming General fight, and I have to say it does paint a pretty interesting view of the region. When your units are being strangled by the vines and forced to use Whispering Darkness, they will mutter certain lines of dialogue. Based on the context of the battle, it is highly likely that these lines are what the General is dreaming about, the events which led to them being reanimated by the forest around them.
Impossible orders, have we been abandoned? To sleep peacefully on pillows of moss and bone. Curses muttered from sylvan shadows. Death marching into the leering tree line.
Now, I've ordered these lines based on when chronologically I believe these events to have occurred. The first line reflects their thoughts on the cultists first descending from the mountain. The second shows their decision to lay down and die rather than suffer their foe. And the fourth line shows how they are now, marching through the forest as undead husks. And they say it's not easy being green. But it's the third line that shows the most about the situation. Curses muttered from sylvan shadows. It seems to imply that some other force, perhaps some fey-like denizens of the forest, or even some primordial force of nature, did not take kindly to this army showing up in the forest only to litter it with the discarded equipment, and then their bodies. So it decided to make use of their desiccated corpses and bring them back as a mobile army. This isn't outside the realm of possibility, as, back in the first Darkest Dungeon, we could find ourselves face to face with corpses that were reanimated by the corrupted fungus of the Weald. Who's to say that this isn't a more powerful version of what we encountered there? Whether this is done to expand the borders of the forest or to rout all other life out of it, only time will tell. The power of the Harvest Child. The Harvest Child is the overgrown, disgusting, putrid clown idiot boss of the Photor who sucks at everything. While the Dreaming General makes sense as a lair boss as the leader of the army, and the Librarian's significance comes from being in charge of the burning of all knowledge, it's more difficult to see how the child of a former landowner would be such a powerful force. However, there is a single line of dialogue that provides an ample explanation for this. Sometimes when initiating the fight, the academic will state that the child was born of a corpulent, half-eaten mother. Now, for her to have been half-eaten at this stage, the child would have had to have been born after the fetid crop of the region had begun transforming its inhabitants. Additionally, it's highly likely that the child had eaten its way out of the womb. To have eaten its way out of the womb in this case, it must have already been a disgusting abomination while it was brewing in there. In turn, this means that the mother must have been corrupted too, having frequently fed the fetid fetus her own gross yet succulent body juices until the child grew the mouth required to eat its way out. I guess you could say that the Harvest Child got fed up? Yeah. Okay. Hell, even looking at the model shows the umbilical cord is still connected to it. Now, if eating the forbidden McDonald's straight from his farm is enough to turn a grown adult into a ravenous abomination, then it's safe to assume that the Harvest Child's influence and power comes from the fact that its development was enhanced and altered by the corrupted food, in turn enhancing its powers and making it into the lair boss it was always born to be. The Vestal's Secret. From the comic, barks, and gear that the Vestal possessed in Darkest Dungeon, we have a pretty good idea of how she came to be. That is, of course, super repressed and impeccably horny, which, strangely enough, is what I have on my business card. Now, I've stated how I feel about whether or not the Vestal survived in a different video, but even if she was alive, there's no way she would allow such an establishment to exist without first caving in the head of those responsible with her mace. On top of this, the quote attached to the inn is, "The reading material here is questionable and undeniably compelling," suggesting that there's some very high quality smut being peddled to those who visit the inn as a selling point. Now, from the Crimson Court DLC, there was a Vestal item called the Salacious Diary, and
It's all coming together.
It is highly possible that, through death or otherwise, the Vestal lost her diary of deviant fantasies, only for it to fall into the hands of a very successful business owner. That's actually pretty messed up now that I think about it. More so if she's dead. That being said, I can't wait to secure a copy myself. The Fate of the Sleeper. As is to be expected, there are several references to the various DLCs of the original game that can be found in items and flavor text. The Color of Madness in particular has several themed items and, of course, an inn named the Miller's Bounty, all owing their existence to a man who should have never been trusted with the local agricultural practices. One such item you can acquire is a throwable combat item which inflicts 5 blight and 5 flame on the intended target. What's of particular interest with this item is what's in it. Looking at the item shows the crystalline shard clearly has the eye of the final boss of the DLC, the Sleeper, in it. In the Color of Madness, the endless wave structure of the Farmstead battles was presented as your party being flung through time and space to fight the eldritch beings that were lurking there. When a hero dies in that mode, they are instead lost in time and space, where they show up a few weeks later like they wanted the best drunken bender possible. Considering how many times you can destroy the Sleeper in that game mode, who's to say that it doesn't suffer a similar fate? These shards could literally be shards of the Sleeper, sent backwards in time to be found and experimented on by the academic, explaining why you can find them in his studies. After being expended in this game as an item, it is most likely that the shards return to the hole instead to do battle with our heroes from the first game, thus completing the stable time loop and allowing him to be fought again. The eye icon in the sprawl. As you travel through each region, you can see all sorts of crazy stuff. You can see trees, you can see the smiling faces, and oh my god, there's a gremlin on the side of the carriage! Barristan, some entity, why can't you see it? We have to do something! When travelling in the sprawl amidst the smouldering corpses and still smouldering soon-to-be corpses, you can find a variety of interesting symbols lining the walls. Now, one of them of course is the mountain, the source of the spreading stain that is responsible for the havoc that has been wrought along our road to redemption. Makes sense, I mean, if a geographical feature was responsible for society falling apart, you'd probably plaster it all over your walls too. The other is the Iron Crown, sometimes pictured together with the mountain. As a symbol said to have appeared across countless civilizations, both past and present, that's not too mysterious either. However, there is one symbol that appears in equal measure to the other two. That of an eye, sometimes appearing crossed out. Given how often this appears, even when compared to the other two symbols, this can't be a coincidence. As this symbol does not have any direct correspondence with the greater elements of the world like the crown and the mountain do, this must be more specific to the sprawl. Although all the woes of the world are linked to the mountain, the unique madness of each region is more likely to have come from different sources, like a domino effect. Now, generally speaking, the eye is a symbol of enlightenment and knowledge. Seemingly, whatever happened in the sprawl caused them to abandon all pursuit of knowledge and put it all to the torch. No, not that torch, that one sucks. Get out of here! Which makes it odd that such a symbol is featured so often in this cursed place. That leads me to believe that perhaps, instead of abandoning knowledge, the denizens of the city found some forbidden knowledge and were driven mad by the revelation, becoming both figuratively, and then later disfiguratively, enlightened. Additionally, this increases the significance of the librarian as a lair boss, as it places him at the center of the conflict, at the heart of the library where the forbidden knowledge was found. The Highwayman's Lover. With the Highwayman's backstory, we know of how he escaped from prison, only to be put back into the shackles of regret after unknowingly causing the death of an innocent woman and her child. What the hero's shrines don't tell you is how Dismas once had a lover. Using the poetry item on him has him state that it reminds him of a past lover, while successfully using the Book of Amorous Ballads results in him expressing the intention of trying to love again. Both items imply that Dismas's former lover was something of a poet themselves. Additionally, the tragic keepsake returns from Darkest Dungeon with the same picture of mother and child in it. While it's well established in the community that this is the picture of the murdered mother and child, it's hard to determine whether it was his own family he killed or someone else's. And I kind of forgot where I was going with this one. Yeah, I guess not every theory can be a winner when you're grasping at straws, or I guess in this case, scraps of paper. Ha! Wait a moment. Paper. What if his recollection comes not from the contents of the paper, but from the paper itself? I see it now! Oh, I take back everything I said, I'm a genius! I'm gonna live forever! Thanks for watching.